Okay, so CANSOL, what is it? That's what it is. It's a second generation module based on the old CANAC 4 CBUS module to drive 4 solenoid motors. It's pretty straightforward. Onboard capacitive discharge unit, and it can run in either in slim or flim mode because it's a pure consumer. So it has no start of day or any of that sort of stuff. You can see on this board, can you guys see my mouse? Yeah. Down here, this blue blob, that's a 4 meg resonator. So I think it's a 4 meg resonator on there. But it's definitely not 16 megahertz and a crystal on this board at this stage. I don't think they'll do it, at least in the near future, because the board is so simple. The reason they went to the 25K80s and the like was price. They're a cheaper processor, and they're thinking again about changing again. How does it work? Well, 12 volts coming in. No big surprise off the CBUS connector. We've got a I can't see what's under there because of a little blob voltage doubler, the 4426. It's doing voltage doubling. Then a current limiter, and both of those are run from the Peco. So there's 2 pins here doing that work. So the RA1 line is just making the output on that 4426 go high and low, so it acts as a charge pump to do voltage doubling. That's all that's going on there. And this current limiter over here, I can't remember how much it limits the current to. Mike Bolton, I think, said 1.5 amps. He actually described that circuit in one of the journal articles, which was pretty good. Because I looked at it and I went, no, I'm a babe in the woods in this stuff, and I didn't know what it was doing. C3 is the capacitive discharge unit capacitor. Reasonably big, 2200 microfarad, 25 volts, and we'll come back to that in a minute. The FET firing is controlled by these lines here on the Peco, and how long they fire for and how long they have for recharge time is all managed by the Peco. We'll look at that a bit more later on. It has flyback diodes up here, so we've got inductive loads, so those diodes just make sure that as the field collapses on the solenoids, the high voltage that would otherwise be generated just gets dissipated as current. And you'll see there's a flyback diode on the 2200 microfarad cap, and one of the interesting things I found not that long ago, lots of you guys I'm expecting to know this stuff, but the large value caps, electrolytics, tend to have a fair bit of inductance because they're just a big bit of wrapped foil in there to give the plate size. So they actually get a bit of inductance. So that's why there's a flyback diode on the large cap. So it's reasonably simple hardware-wise. Don't think there's much to say there. And then they've got a small resistor in series with the FETs to limit the current so they don't blow themselves up if they get a short circuit. And you can see this design is reasonably old, so it's been around for a while. Mike proposed doing the voltage double a long time ago to replace the CANAC 4, but didn't appear for quite a while. So there's some cautions on this thing, to my mind. So if we've got 12 volts in, we get 22 out. And let's see what happens if we have a bit more than that. 14.5 in will give us 26 over here. And we're going to have a rather interesting time for this 25 volt rated cap. Well, I actually raised this with Mike Bolton after he released the original circuit diagram for this and parts list, because normally you would have a fair bit of headroom for an electrolytic cap. If you need close to 25, you'd put a 35 volt cap in there. It extends their life if nothing else. But no, you put a 25 in. So one of the things that you get away with quite easily on most of the CBUS boards is you could have 12 volts or 15 volts or anywhere in that sort of range, and your regulators aren't going to get real hot and the boards will work fine. But because this one's using a voltage doubler, you better be using a regulated 12-volt supply. Otherwise, it's going to go bang. And the other thing, of course, you got when you started raising questions about the selection of the 25-volt one in the forum, you get some of the people come back and say, but the specification is for 12 volts in. Well, how many of us, when we're told 12 volts, will go and find some supply that's labelled 12 volts and plug it in and make it go? And we don't know what it's actually putting in. Talked before about the ability to control the pulse width to the coils. So you guys all familiar with FCU, phlegm? Yes, no, yeah. So there's varying head movements from vertical to horizontal, and I get that. So if you're reasonably new to this stuff, FCU is the phlegm configuration utility. So in there we can configure the node variables to control various aspects of whatever the board is. So if it's a CANSOL, it's got these particular node variables. Other boards will have different node variables depending on what the hell they're trying to do. So you can see here the node variables are in units of 10 milliseconds, and we can increase or decrease how long that pulse is. Now, I grabbed this screenshot straight out of the FCU modules guide. They did not have one for node variables 9 to 16, but you can see down here in the comments that it says NV9 sets the CDU recharge time. Well, that's true. 9 sets the recharge time if solenoid 1A fires, so the solenoid on one end of the Peco motor. NV10 sets the recharge time if you fire the one down the other end, and they've all got defaults that all work. But if you've got a motor that's rather sticky, you can hit it harder and you can give it more recharge time if you need. So you can play with this as you need. The solenoids fire in order. So if you have an event that's going to fire several solenoids, one will fire, you'd expect it to recharge the CDU, then the next one will fire, it'll recharge the CDU, and away you go through the list. Yep, so NV1 is 1A, NV8 is 4B. If I just go back for a minute, back to this will do here. For each solenoid, you've got a left and a right coil. So they're numbered as 1A, 1B for the two coils on turnout 1, and the same sort of notation for the rest of them. Okay. And the recharge time for the CDU. Event configuration is pretty simple. Now up here you'll see something else that looks a bit odd. It says CAN ACE3 setup for point control. This again is out of the FCU modules guide, but in this case they are actually taking an event from a CAN ACE3, the 128 input switch module, and using that to control some solenoid motors. In this case they haven't set anything yet, but they could set whatever they like. So they could say, I want point 1 to set its A output, point 2 to set its B, blah, blah, blah. Take as many or as few as you like. So if I wanted 1 and 2 to form a crossover, we'd set them both. So if point 1 straight ahead was A, and point 2 straight ahead was A, then you'd set output B for one event and set output B for the other. Sorry, for that event you'd set output B on both. And when you turn the event off, it'll set them back. Now, the same turnouts could be involved in multiple route settings. So this CANSOL is only controlling 4 solenoid motors. So 8 solenoids, 4 solenoid motors, Peco motors or the like. But your route might have some servos or even more solenoids out there connected to other modules. So you might have 2 or 3 routes or 10 routes that all have a couple of points one particular way. So you'll have it responding to event 10 with this one set on and this one set on, event 11 with this one set on, this one set on. I'll pile them for as many routes as you need to set up that have the same requirements for those turnouts. Usual CBUS behavior for module, and I haven't checked this on this one. You'd need to be looking at the signals to see that it actually does what they usually do, or go digging the code. But normally, when you set some actions for the on, when you set up an event, you set what happens to the on, and normally what happens is whatever the stuff that happens to the on is reversed in order for the off event. So if we were putting turnout 1's A output on in response to some event, and this one's A output on, when we set in the off event, it'll do the B's. Yeah, that's what it'll do. But it'll do them, this one and then this one on the off event. On the on event, it'll do this one, then this one. Always goes in increasing order of the output or the point. Similarly, if you've got CAN servo and you set servos 1 and 3, servo 1 will go before servo 3. And on return, servo 3 will go before servo 1. Funny thing is, I don't know anywhere where I've seen it in the doco, but I've talked to people to make sure that's the way it behaves. And even though we've only got 4 points we're controlling, this module can have 128 events. So don't know how many routes you're going to have configured, but you should be able to handle it with that many events. That's it. I told you this one was really simple. Okay, so CANSOL is a pretty trivial little module. I don't know that you're going to have any real dramas with it because it's such a simple little module. Let me see if I can just go back to the second slide. See all slides. Go back there. So that's the picture of it. These switches here are for the FLIM configuration. Unlike the later modules that we're seeing, the ones based on CAN, MIO and the like, you only get 8 functions out of this module, so you only get 4 solenoids controlled. The other inputs for the PIC are all used for SLIM configuration. You got any questions, comments, guys? Did it make sense?
Yep, no, it's good.
Yeah. I thought I'd built one of these. I was going to get some screenshots out of FCU, but I've actually got 2 kits here, but I'd never built one, and I've got one of the old CAN 4s. And I thought I might as well just steal the screenshots out of the manual as opposed to spending time building the CANSOL that I won't actually use in real life. I might use it on a demo board for us, Steve, that's about it. So I wasn't in any big hurry to build that one. So any questions, guys? Otherwise I'll stop the recording on this one. That'll be nice and self-contained.